All right, my friends, welcome to 120 Months. My name is David Parsons. If you listened to our program before, you know what we're doing. If you haven't, then I'll let you know. We are walking through the 1990s, listening to all the major albums released month by month. We are currently in an amazing year, 1991. This is the episode for November 91. John, how are you? Good to see you.
Thanks, David. Good to be here.
The masterpieces continue in a way. I mean, we've got some big albums. This month was a really diverse month, I'll say that. All over the place.
It is, and it's not, there's probably an exception to this in here, but this is not a collection. This is a collection of really good records, but they are not records that had a massive influence on the 90s, are they? Except for maybe Tupac.
Yeah.
They're
Well, I don't know. I think people would say My Bloody Valentine had a massive influence on the 90s.
Yeah. It's particularly this record, right?
Yeah, this record. This is like one of their only records, I think.
Yeah.
They put it out and it broke up. There's a kind of crazy story behind it. We should just get started and get into it.
Let's do it.
It's all over the place. But yeah, our first album is, I don't know if I would describe it as a cult classic or just a classic, but it's called Loveless, by a band called My Bloody Valentine. I was thinking of other bands named with the My in there, like My Chemical Romance, My Morning Jacket. I think there's probably others. But anyway, My Bloody Valentine is a band that we listened to, I think, an EP of theirs a little while back.
Called Glider.
Yeah, and it was just, it was sort of the run-up to this album. It seems like this band is doing a lot of experimentation with guitar sounds and what you can do with studio work. Like this is a really constructed album. For those that don't know what this is, it's a really atmospheric, tons of distorted reverb guitars and muted vocals, I would say.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like that Slow Dive record we listened to, I think, last month or the month before.
Definitely of the same, yeah. Kevin Shields is an interesting guy, born in New York, moved to Ireland, and they're considered an Irish band. He was actually one of the guys that was in this. He was in a band with before My Bloody Valentine. Is the guy that went on to form the band Hot House Flowers. I don't know if you remember them.
No,
I don't remember his name. But so they took a while to find their sound. I was interested in their story and this record. I went back and listened to a bunch of their older stuff, and it's really kind of all over the place. So you said they're influential. They are very influential. They're also very influenced.
Yes.
Which is that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's great. But they took a while. And their old records, you can hear like they have songs where they really sound like they go from they sound like the Cramps on that record, Dinosaur Jr. and Sonic Youth on this record. And so they were a heavily influenced band. They took a while to find their sound. This record, it seems like it all kind of coalesced into the right things for them. It all kind of, clicked for them. But
it's sort of like the ultimate example of that genre shoegaze, which I don't think the people who are shoegaze bands or identified as such necessarily like that label, because it's sort of like
it's probably been from Seattle and called grunge.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But if you're into that music, you know who you are. You know what I mean? It seems it's a little tangential to goth music. It's a little near electronic or dance music. But it seems like it has a lot in common with that dream pop genre we've talked about,
yes,
like the Cocteau Twins and that sort of stuff.
For sure, and what a lot of it is rooted in this glide guitar thing that he does. Now you said tons of guitars. I would think that too, but they say there aren't a ton of guitars on there. They'd say that it's not a lot of tracks. And
when I say tons of guitars, I mean just like a heavy guitar sound.
It sounds like there's tons of guitars.
Right.
And what he's doing is he's strumming gently bending the guitars out of tune on the tremolo bar. So it creates this, it's a hypnotic sound. It did.
Totally.
And it's kind of like, sometimes it's very effective for what they're trying to do. And you know what it sounds like a little bit to me? Like you may be old enough to remember this. Do you ever have an album that got left in the sun, a vinyl album, and it warped?
Right.
And
yeah,
it kind
I've
of
heard
plays
that sound.
a little bit out of tune.
Oh, totally. There's actually one song in particular on this album, and it's hard to tell the difference between these songs for me, honestly. Like this is just like one big piece. It all sort of flows together for me. I don't think of like, oh, that's the new hot My Bloody Valentine single. And that's intentional. They're not trying to make like pop singles here.
No.
It seems like this is real art. Like this is a sort of a unified piece. But there is one section of it where I'm always like, is the fucking record broken? What's going on there? It's like, wow, wow.
It's a strange effect, but they use it. I mean, he's got it nailed. And this album is, the critics said he reinvented the guitar. I found Robert Smith of The Cure, Bob Mould of Sugar and Husker Du, Billy Corgan of Smashing Pumpkins, who's obviously influenced by this music. And,
definitely.
Brian Eno, the producer, they've all expressed how much this album means to them and what a classic it is. And they went to a lot of trouble to make this record. I don't know if you read about it, but they did this over the course of like a year and a half.
It's like making Apocalypse Now or something.
Yeah,
it's like a production that was marred by all sorts of budget problems, moving from studio to studio.
19 different studios.
Yeah.
They started in February of 89 and finished in September of 91. That's like over 2 years. I don't know how you keep a... It's really interesting to me. I've made records. I made quite a few records in my youth. How do you keep a project cohesive and together for 2 years? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that, but it was worth the trouble though. It's a cool record. It's immediately exciting and it catches your ear. And like I remember when we listened to Glider, I thought it was cool, but it wasn't on my radar as like, wow, I want to keep an eye on that. But I thought, this is interesting, and they're one of those bands that I was playing music and I was around when this album came out. I never was aware of it or listened to it.
I think it took a while for this album to garner the kind of respect that it has now. I mean, what's interesting is that Pitchfork, the like ultimate sort of hipster music magazine or website, I guess, they named this the #1 album of the 1990s.
Really?
Yeah, and I think in part because of its sort of towering influence, it's respected by critics. I think it has... I don't think it's like beloved universally, but I think the people that do love it a whole lot. You know what I mean? Like it has like a devoted fan base. It's sort of like I don't know, Neutral Milk Hotel and the Aeroplane Over the Sea. There's an album that like not everybody knows, but the people who know it really love it and think of it as like their favorite thing. I think that My Bloody Valentine's Loveless fits in that category.
It seems, I would agree. I like I said, this is sort of my first. I've heard it, like I've been aware of them, but I've never sat and paid attention to them, and I understand it. The one thing I would say, and this is not anything against them, it's just that I'm more of a sucker for songs.
Yeah, right. I know. I was thinking about that the whole time. I was like, John likes well-crafted 3-minute bangers.
I like well-crafted songs. I like great lyrics and interesting melodies and so, but that's just a taste thing. That's nothing wrong with.
Well, this is atmospheric. This is we've said this before about a couple different albums that they would be great for like haunted houses or something. You know what I mean? That like this would be a great album to have on in like a dark room with light effects and candles, and like it sort of sets a mood. And I feel like someone reading all the different critics and fan comments about this album as we were thinking about this podcast, the one that stuck out to me is that this album is different every time you listen to it, and that I forget what this album sounds like until I put it on, and I'm like, oh yeah, and there are sections of it where I'm like, oh, I really love this one. I like this particular little riff or this little section, but it's an enigmatic work of art. There's nothing quite like it, and I know it's considered sort of the top of its genre, if that makes sense. Like this type of music, this is the sort of gold standard. Kevin
Shields played almost everything on it. Even the one of the things that happened with the band at this era that has to be mentioned is they got a new female vocalist, Belinda. She's also she was a guitar player too. And she was happy to let him play her parts.
Belinda Butcher,
but I feel like the addition of her vocals to their sound is a real like congealing. Yeah, it causes everything to sort of click, and she's got a cool voice. She's an interesting singer.
Bless you.
Sorry. So I think that's but think about it, like what you're saying just now. This did strike me like, okay, I get how this does sound like it's one person's project a little bit. I can see how this is from the mind of one artist rather than a band coming together, and particularly when you consider that also their drummer, I'm going to say his name wrong because it's very Irish, Colm O'Kiosog, I think his name was, but he got sick.
Okay.
He had some physical issues, and he couldn't play on a lot of the album, so they had him kind of tap out what he would play, and they programmed it.
Wow, interesting.
And so, and ironically, we just got done talking about this, but Kevin Shields said that one of the things that encouraged and inspired him to do that was listening to Public Enemy, like how well these guys had been able to create beats. And you know, this is new technology at that time.
That's right.
So,
yeah. I think we take it for granted that you can just like make stuff on a computer and make it sound actually pretty amazing now. But you couldn't. That was new stuff back then.
Well,
it took a while, I think, for people to understand like how to create art and how to make art out of electronic beats and computer programming.
You know, for them, necessity was the mother of invention there. And it's a shame, too, because the first song on the record is called Only Shallow. He played, that's really him playing. And I like the way he plays the drums. I would have loved to hear, you know, I'd always rather hear, if it's a great drummer, I'd always rather hear the drummer.
Right.
And he has a really great, his drums sound great, and he plays with a great style. And I would have loved to hear him play more.
It's a very cool record. I like this one a lot, and we won't be hearing from them again because their next album comes out in 2013.
Sheesh.
There's like a 22-year gap between their
that's a long
albums. Time. And in the meantime, this album sort of became legendary.
It's very entrancing. There is a dreamlike quality to it. It's like this album to me. Like I said, I don't walk away from it going, wow, that Kevin Shields is a great songwriter. But what they were creating and his vision, it is like a beautiful stream that sweeps you off in its current, and you just kind of float along it, and it was great. It was
100%. Cool. Yeah, that's how I feel about it too. I told Claudia as we were listening to it today, I was like, these songs, there's not like I'm like, oh yeah, this one My Bloody Valentine song. It's just sort of you put the album on for an entire mood.
That's, you know? Yeah, and you know, it gets compared a lot to Pet Sounds. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I wonder why that is.
Well,
it's because how coherent the whole piece is as one. Like Pet Sounds is almost like a movie, you know, where it's just sort of like you listen to the whole thing. I could see that.
I think it's because
it's in that pantheon for sure.
I think it's because it's the vision. Really, I mean, primarily Pet Sounds is Brian Wilson, right? So, of course, the Beach Boys are there, but I think it's the vision of one artist who's really setting out to sort of redefine how something is done.
Yeah.
And the overall project is more important than the songs.
Right.
And that's what it has in common. Now, that doesn't...
And an instantly identifiable sound. You know what I mean? Like you put on... If someone puts My Bloody Valentine's Loveless on, I'm instantly like, oh, that's that. You know what I mean? Like it's nothing else quite sounds like it. And Pet Sounds, I mean... There are a million people who have been inspired by Brian Wilson and Beach Boys and like done a Beach Boys sound.
Yeah.
But you can always tell they're doing it. You know what I mean?
Right,
You're always like they
even when it was the Beatles.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Right.
Back in the USSR and stuff. Yeah.
That's right. Okay, so let's move on to another European Irish band. This is the first entry of the band U2 into this program, right? We haven't talked about We've talked about U2 a lot actually, as tangential to other things.
Have we?
Yeah, Bono has come up for sure, and we've talked about the production of a couple of different albums, but this is the first time we're actually looking at an album that came out within the time frame we're examining here. This is November 1991. U2's album Achtung Baby, which many people consider not only U2's finest album, but one of the greatest albums of all time. It's in that. There's a couple albums here, I mean, in 91 actually, that are sort of like, you know, it put them in the Smithsonian type albums, historically significant one way or the other. And Achtung Baby is one that I remember it coming out. I feel like I was already aware of U2, but through like the Joshua Tree and like that type of stuff. But this is a total. I mean, to what degree would you call this a reinvention of their sound? Because it really is a departure.
That's a very good question. So I have a long answer for you.
Yeah, please.
So the short answer is tremendously, and yet also not. So
it's still
if
U2. Yeah.
I was a U2 fan. It's very popular to not like U2 right now.
For sure.
And it has been for a long time because, Bono has some problems. I was going to make a joke earlier, and you said that we've talked about Bono on the show.
Yes.
And I was going to say, well, Bono knows if you're not talking about him, and he gets pissed, and he comes
right,
in.
Exactly.
So he has struggled with his ego.
He has a notification on his phone that says someone's not talking about
him.
Yeah.
I was a U2 fan from like October, which was their second record. And I remember when War came out, and they in October they were kind of doing this interesting punk thing. But I'm gonna make a point here that up to this point, that's what they did. They kept reinventing themselves, and if you were a U2 fan, you knew that. So they kind of had this punk, post-punk Brit rock, guitar rock thing going, but it was obviously their own thing on the first couple of records, Boy in October, and then War comes out. And I had never heard I don't think anybody had ever heard anything quite like War. It's very raw. Steve Lillywhite's production is really cool. It's very raw. It's very politically charged, yet it's beautiful. And the playing is beautiful, and there's a lot of cool influences on there. There's interesting songs on that record. Like there's a song called 40 that's mostly the bass. I will sing a new song. And then Two Hearts Beat as One, which has almost like a slap bass funk thing going on. There's a lot of different influences on that record. It's such a great record. And then
I was looking at the track listing because I wanted to. That's the one that does start with Sunday Bloody Sunday.
Sunday Bloody Sunday,
which is such like an iconic just kickoff to an album. Yes.
And it's very raw. Listen to the kick drum. It sounds like it's in your bedroom. It's very raw. It's not produced. And then you got New Year's Day, which is also very iconic. That beginning with the piano and the guitar. So that War like cemented them actually as like pretty popular bands when they did Under Blood Red Sky. But then they go and they become like this bizarre, esoteric space rock band with Unforgettable Fire. They start working with Daniel Lanois and Brian Eno, who's like the guy who worked with Bowie and Iggy Pop and stuff. And Eno actually produced Devo's first record too.
Oh, that's funny. And so, Lanois is pretty young at this point too.
He
right?
is.
Yeah.
Although he produced a lot, but he was a young guy, and definitely the first mate to Eno's captain in that role at that point. So, but then the Unforgettable Fire has like songs like Pride in the Name of Love and Those So Bad, and then they come out with this other record once again with Lanois and Eno, which is true to their ethos as U2, melodic and simple and powerful, but it's got this Americana blues rock feel to it. It's Joshua Tree. There's a lot of bluesy feel to Joshua Tree. There's slide guitar and harmonica, and it's still U2 though, and that record made them like the biggest fucking band in the world. Maybe they didn't sell more copies than Michael Jackson or Bon Jovi in that year, but they were in the zeitgeist of things.
That song "With or Without You" on Joshua Tree is probably the first song I heard of U2 when I was a little kid. I remember it being on rock radio. Like that was just I think broke them into a bit even bigger space than they had been in before.
It did. It still haven't found what I'm looking for. Where the Streets Have No Name. So they become like this force of cultural nature, and they're still this like a politically charged protest band. Pride in the Name of Love, big hit off of Unforgettable. It's about Martin Luther King's murder.
Right.
So they're not singing silly things. They're one of those bands where the Streets Have No Name, big hit song. It's about poverty and economic inequality and stuff. So that's who they are, right? So they become the biggest band in the world, and they couldn't fucking handle it. Their egos swallowed them whole.
Well, is that Rattle and Hum?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's this bloated piece of, for Christ's sake.
It's a live album, right?
A lot of it's live, but
yeah.
then, some of it's concert footage of them playing the stuff off Joshua Tree and Unforgettable Fire and War. And then some of it's new. They did a song with B.B. King on that record. They remade Helter Skelter by
This is what we talked about before, because I had just got Rattle and Hum. I found a copy of it somewhere on vinyl, and I hadn't heard it in its entirety, and it just feels like really big. There's a lot of songs, but also like they're trying to educate me about like American history a little bit, and it feels like they've taken on. They've swallowed
nailed
their
it.
own legend.
You fucking nailed it.
Yeah.
Like, we're U2 and we will now teach you about American rock music. Like,
Yes.
no, you won't.
Right.
And so it was very much panned by critics, and some audience people, I was among them, just thought, oh, for Christ's sake.
The world said boo.
Yes, yes, sit down. And they knew. They knew it.
Yeah.
They were smart enough to know it. And so that's what Achtung Baby is to my ears. Like, they're trying to distance themselves from that moment.
Well, they did, and they found a new
They
sound, and it was really successful in every way. I think artistically, critically, and commercially, this album was a huge, huge success. I found it interesting to read, because I didn't know this, that as they were contemplating this and thinking about how do we move on from Rattle and Hum, and what do we do now, it was Bono and the Edge who were like, we need to incorporate like industrial, electronic sounds, like sounds of like the kind of zeitgeisty stuff that's happening in Europe and clubs. We need to be a little more arty. We need to be experimental. And it was Adam Clayton and Larry Powell, the rhythm section, the bass and drums, who were Larry Mullen.
Yeah.
That were like, no, let's just keep it.
Didn't want to do it.
Let's just go back to like Joshua Tree type stuff. They weren't into it, and it almost split the band up. Like they were like fighting over it, and it took them a while to find their sound. I think it was the creation of the song One that sort of introduced the sound to themselves in a way.
Caused it all to gel.
There's something really magical about it, and reading about the production of that song with the Edge kind of like creating the chord progression and Bono sort of saying like latching onto some lyrics and
Daniel Lanois doing a couple of those really key guitar parts too.
And it's funny because you said that My Bloody Valentine took like 3 years or 2 years to make, whereas it can come together in like 15 minutes, which is what they said. I don't know if that's an exaggeration, but they said it was like 15 minutes, probably more like a couple hours. They made this song and they were like, this is it. This is the sound of the album. This is the spirit we're going for. That to me, I love when artists talk about how certain songs just sort of poured out of them. It means they kind of like struck gold, that line, that vein of gold within themselves of like, that's where it is. And sometimes, we've heard of Billy Corgan said that happened with the song 1979, which is he said that he was driving, delivering pizzas in Chicago on a cold, shitty, gray day. He was overcome with nostalgia for being younger.
Really?
Yeah, and he was like, I have a song in my head, and he's just like, he pulled over. This is his own mythology maybe, but he says he pulled over and like just scribbled down all the lyrics, and he's like, the song was done. And he said that is very rare for him. Usually he struggles with lyrics. He writes them over and over again. He edits a lot. He's like, 1979 just poured out of me. And there are a lot of examples of
Zeppelin
that.
said that about Hotel California. What's it called? It's a Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah.
So you're talking about something very interesting, and I have experienced this.
Mm-hmm.
That the best songs are like they're already out there, you just picked up with your antenna was clean enough to pick it up. I think anybody who writes songs a lot understands that you obviously contribute, but it really isn't you. You are an effective conduit if you're a great songwriter, and there is no question that the four guys that are U2 have many times been that conduit. When they come together, they create a great antenna to catch things that are out there, and that is what happened on that song.
I think Leonard Cohen said something like, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said like, I don't know where great songs live, but if I did, I would go there more often. You know what I mean? Like the idea of like, they're not me. I'm sort of just I'm putting myself in the mindset to find them. I love that idea.
Well, I was a contracted songwriter for Warner Chappell, and there were times when I was told, go write some songs. And they were shit.
Crank a few hits out.
When I sat down and said, okay, it's now time to write songs. But what I used to do, and I personally used pharmaceuticals to help me with this sometimes.
Sure.
But I would just sit and write all day. And then something would happen that was good.
Yeah.
Most of it's shit,
Right.
You just have to be available. But bringing it back to this record, I didn't like this record when it first came out because of what you're talking about. Because once again, I've talked about this. I was very rigid in my listening back then, and I wanted U2 to be a rock band, and this didn't sound like a rock band to me anymore. And because there's programmed percussion.
I like the early stuff. They suck now.
Yeah, this sucks now. And it was my lack of vision, but Daniel Lanois said this in an interview. I love this. He said what was different about it was that they were determined to mix flesh and machine.
I love that.
And
yeah.
because U2 had been so much a flesh and blood thing forever, you know? And so, and you can hear it on there. Like I want to talk about some of the influences because first of all, it is mostly in the rhythms. Larry Mullen and Adam Clayton are playing very different than they typically do. And I mean, they are laying down fucking grooves on this record.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of programmed percussion. It's not drum machine weird sounds. It sounds like a percussion player, like congas or different types of, you know, maybe even almost Latin sounding percussion, but it's programmed on top of his beats, and it gives it this club, this
totally
Euro club
industrial
sound.
There's even like someone's banging on trash cans.
It's
type
fucking
stuff.
cool.
Yes.
And I also hear, do you know what the Manchester sound was?
So that was associated with the Damon Albarn, the Blur album.
Kind of, yes, that's right. So this is Manchester's a town in England, obviously. A lot of bands came out of there, and there was this thing that happened in the late 80s, early 90s, like Happy Mondays, Stone Roses. We played some shows with Happy Mondays, and it's kind of a very similar beat. A kind of shitty example of it is, but a very popular example of what I'm talking about is Right Here, Right Now by Jesus Jones.
Yeah.
Which is a rock guitar thing with a really dancey beat underneath it. And I think that U2 got influenced by that a little bit here.
Totally, yeah. Well, it's a very zeitgeisty album.
Yeah.
It feels like they were doing like what David Bowie did a lot, which is sort of take a lot of sounds that are popular in the underground and kind of bring them to a mainstream audience.
Through the filter that is David Bowie.
Right.
Yeah. And they're doing it successfully here too. Flood is an engineer on this record who worked on Nine Inch Nails and Depeche Mode. So he's got this incredible industrial and techno acumen that he's bringing to the table for them. And here's a little funny thing to do. One of the biggest hits on this record is called Mysterious Ways. Go listen to the middle section of Mysterious Ways, and then go listen to about 2 minutes into the last song on Loveless called Soon. And tell me that isn't like the same fucking song.
Yeah, it's in the air.
And I don't think, nobody's ripping anybody off. It's just in the air. Because
right.
it happened at the same time, right?
Yeah. Well, this was a Berlin album, right? I mean, they were like very...
They went to Berlin.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Bowie, because Bowie famously had his Berlin phase.
It's called Hansa Studios. Yeah. That's where Bowie and a big Iggy Pop recorded a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Bowie got clean and went to Berlin and put out like, Station to Station?
Yeah.
And like all that kind of really cool
great
Art Low.
And Eno was producing it.
That's right.
Yeah. Some of it anyway.
Yeah, and Berlin has its own sort of bohemian associations, and I didn't realize that U2 in recording Achtung Baby, they were like in a ballroom somewhere in Berlin where they were like recording in this really sort of gothic, cool, haunted space. They really sort of did something different with this.
They
one.
sure did.
Yeah.
They brought their U2 wears their producers on their sleeve. Like when Steve Lillywhite is part of War. His stuff that he's doing. Eno and Lanois, that's what I call them together.
Eno, yeah.
Brian Eno and Daniel Lanois are very present in Unforgettable Fire, Joshua Tree, and this one in Achtung Baby. You can Eno's this the avant-garde sort of innovation guy, the weird techno, right? And then Lanois is like a swampy New Orleans blues guy. And they really make a nice blend when they lay that over the canvas that is U2. And it's very interesting. You can hear it on stuff like one that I saw Lanois talking about. There's a riff that goes all the way through. That's Lanois. He's doing that.
I think, and I don't know if you would agree with me, but one to me is a candidate for the song of the 90s. Like it's one of the top for me, and in every way. It's sound that sort of it brings you back to that era. Its sentiments, it's the craft of its lyrics, the passion, the sort of we've talked about this before, the flexibility of the meaning of the song. The song is sort of like what is this really about? But and Bono's performance, it's so fucking good.
This is super corny, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's timeless.
Right.
It's like Stand By Me.
Yeah.
Or some song that just never gets old. It sounds, listening to it last night, it sounds new and ancient.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's just such a great song. The way that they put, it's such a well-crafted song. The way Larry plays the beat, and there's this sort of Hammond B3 chucking along with the snare, and there's like maybe guitar doing it too, and it pushes the rhythms. And then the way that Bono is such a great singer. I don't care what you think of him. I know he's an insufferable egomaniac at times, but he's such a great singer. And in this song, his phrasing, he reaches Sinatra level phrasing on the song. Yeah. The way he breaks up the sounds, and the way he
it gets that section at the end. It's when he's like, did I ask too much, more than a lot? It just kills me. Yeah. It's so good. It's one of those songs. It's like the Desperado thing on Seinfeld, where if this song starts, I'm listening to the whole thing. Yeah. I fucking love it. Yeah.
It is a great song. It's considered one of the greatest pop songs of all time.
I thought it was interesting that it's sort of I didn't realize this about the meaning of the song, that Bono was sort of playing with the idea of oneness and like the hippie idea of like we're all one, and kind of like pushing back against that idea a bit, like saying like we're one but we're not the same, and that idea of in the lyrics of we get to carry each other, not that we've got to carry each other, but like we get to. It's like a privilege or a choice to carry each other. There's so much going on in it. It's a really thought-provoking song. It's another one of those that you could like hear differently each time you listen to it. You get something a little bit different from it.
He can write in a way. Sometimes he taps into something that's as good as any great author or poet. And like, have you come here for forgiveness? Have you come to raise the dead? Have you come here to play Jesus to the lepers in your head?
Amazing,
it's brilliant
stuff. Yeah,
it's so beautiful. The whole that. It's funny because here's how long I've been listening to that record. I still think of it in sides.
Right.
I still remember side 1 and side 2.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It starts with Zoo Station, and obviously it immediately dispels everything they've done up to then. It's so different.
It does not sound
the
like a
drums
U2
sound
record.
like, what the fuck? It sounds like the snares turned off or something. It's like
But it has the energy of like Sunday Bloody Sunday, which kicks off War. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It has that kind of like, oh shit. Like we're being introduced to something that's going to have like a pace and vibe to it. It does. You're right. It's sort of like doesn't sound anything like U2 and sounds exactly like
U2. Yeah. And that's a really interesting thing too. A lot of the songs, not all of them, but a lot of the songs on this record are bereft of licks on the drums, which is not a very U2 thing. I mean, think about going into Pride in the Name of Love. Like he does a lot of very signature things on the drums. This record, he's just laying down beats for the most part. Yeah. There are exceptions. The real thing is, that dance groove feel and the slinky guitar. I just loved what I wrote down here in my notes. The Edge is the most interesting person to pick up a guitar since Eddie Van Halen. Okay, now I hope maybe this will be a clip.
Yeah, and qualify this,
because this will, we'll get a lot of this will rile them up out there.
Right.
I'm not saying that he's a great guitar player. Most of the stuff he plays, I can play on that acoustic guitar, but he's the most interesting person to pick up a guitar since Eddie Van Halen, because Eddie Van Halen looked at that thing and went, "I'm going to do this entirely differently," and figured that out. The Edge does it entirely differently. He paints landscapes. He creates a sonic field upon a sonic field upon a sonic field with very simple, repetitive things. He uses delay, obviously, and other effects to create it. On this album, he's wah pedal all over the place. You know?
He's a pedal guy for sure.
He's an effect guy.
Right.
I mean, have you ever seen? There's a movie called This Might Get Loud.
Yeah, I've watched that.
Do you remember his effects thing?
Yes.
It's like this. It's like a fucking supercomputer.
I thought it was interesting the guitarists they chose, because they were all sort of different in what they were trying to do with the guitar. And I thought that was wise, because like you said, the Edge isn't a shredder. No. Who gives a fuck that he's not? Because just like My Bloody Valentine proves, you can do a lot with an electric guitar sonically. There are many different directions to go. He
changed the game as much as Eddie Van Halen did. Mm-hmm. And you can debate that. Eddie Van Halen changed the way everybody played solos. For sure. The Edge changed the way guitarists approached songs. There are so many people out there that should be paying him royalties for the way they made their guitars sound, the way they started to use effects and layer things. And certainly people have done it before. I mean, like David Gilmour does it on the White City album. Pete Townsend has an album called White City. There's a song called "Give Blood." David Gilmour, or like he's using a delay in a very interesting way that the Edge was probably influenced by. Certainly on "You Better Run" or "Run Like Hell" on "The Wall." David Gilmour. But few people. Tom Verlaine from television does some cool type of shit like this. But few people were able to create so many incredible, interesting, and beautiful music ideas with such an interesting approach to guitar. And it changed the way people looked at the guitar, for sure.
Yeah, I think of just like Bono's voice, the Edge's guitar tones and rhythm, the rhythmic sort of touch he has on the guitar is instantly recognizable. Like
instantly,
you're like, oh, this is a U2 song. Like if you're at a bar and a song comes up that's even maybe a not as well-known U2 song, you're going to recognize that guitar sound.
And I'll tell you something else.
Even before Bono's voice comes in.
They've made I'm a giant U2 fan, and I remain so. And they've made a bunch of music I hate.
Yeah, I put myself in the same category.
But I always like the Edge's guitar playing.
Yeah.
Even when I don't like the songs.
Right.
Even when I think Bono, shut the fuck up. I wrote a song about him once. Like, dude,
I remember
it,
this.
Please, cool it.
Yeah.
But I always like the Edge's guitar playing. But I will also an interesting thing about Bono too. I remember when I was a young at this time in 91 to 93 is when we were like getting record deals and making records and stuff. 95 is, but I remember I used to read industry magazines like Cashbox and stuff like that. I remember they interviewed these guys that were like top A&R execs, and I can't remember who the guys were. But like there were guys back then that were almost as famous as there's a guy named Michael Goldstone from Epic Records. Michael Goldstone signed Pearl Jam, Rage Against the Machine. Like he was a superstar A&R guy. So there was an interview with these top A&R guys. If you could sign anybody, and this was probably 1994, if you could sign anybody, who would you sign? And they were talking about people like Kurt Cobain and Eddie Vedder and Billy Joe Armstrong and all these hit songs they were. But the number one of all of them was still Bono.
That's amazing.
Like he's still the most sure thing.
They have an incredible amount of good songs.
And hit songs. Like
they have a lot of shit. And I will say that I don't really follow them that far. Like probably the last 15 years of records of U2 I haven't paid any attention to. You know what I mean? Ever since they loaded that one automatically into the Apple Music. Do you remember when this happened?
I do.
It pissed everybody off.
It's called Songs of Innocence.
Right.
It's, by the way, it's a fucking great record.
Is it good?
It's great.
That's funny.
But nobody will listen to it.
Right.
It's a great record. There's like 6 great songs on that record. It
felt like, hey, I did not consent to U2 being loaded into my iTunes. Yeah, they acted like it was a gift. There is something arrogant about that. Like,
Bono put it perfectly.
Yeah.
He said, "We thought we were leaving milk on your doorstep, and it turns out we broke into your house and put it in your fridge."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Achtung Baby, before we go, or before we move on from this album, the politics are sort of like gone here.
Very much.
This is like a spiritual. I think if it's a spiritual album, it's heading towards
about love.
Yeah, and there's kind of a lot about. Or touching on kind of like, I don't know, the media world and he's sort of like engaging with the world in a different way than Sunday Bloody Sunday.
For sure.
It's like we're very far from that. And I think that, I don't know, it puts them, I feel like this is closer to a Depeche Mode album in its themes.
That's interesting. What I mean? For sure.
Yeah.
So there's some things going on. They're struggling as a band.
Right.
And he said, I needed to be honest about that. Edge is going through a divorce.
Yep.
That song's so cruel that he and Bono co-wrote that about his divorce. And then Bono is desperately trying to reinvent himself as not the fucking pompous dick.
Well, he creates a persona of a pompous dick. Yeah. With the leather. What's funny about that? The huge glasses, the huge sunglasses, and the leather jacket, and his hair. But I always thought The Fly looked cool. You know what I mean? Like, as much as I know it's supposed to be satire, but I thought this is just Bono being Bono. Like, he's now graduated into, like, it works on several levels, in other words. It's very postmodern. It's kind of like, I'm playing a character, but the character kind of is me, Like, because in a lot of ways, it's like, where does The Fly end and where does Bono begin?
Or is it just a bad performance?
Right, yeah.
Because I always felt like this is just a way to, rather than lay it out there raw and go, man, I got to fucking swallow this ego of mine.
Right.
You create this persona that still makes you look cool.
Yeah.
And so it's not tongue in cheek. It doesn't have a feel of self-satire. So if that's what he's going for, it didn't accomplish it. But musically, they accomplished it wonderfully. So like Who's Gonna Ride Your Wild Horses? You know that's my second favorite song on this record.
There's a bridge in that's like turn around, don't turn.
Yeah,
so good, man. Like it just the songs are so fucking good on this album.
The beginning of that record is the emotional. I'm sorry, that song, Who's Gonna Ride Your Wild Horses? The way the Edge there's a keyboard tone, and the Edge is playing these really distorted, effects-laden guitar things that are chords that ring out into feedback. It's the equivalent of watching like a beautiful sunrise over the mountains. It's very majestic and it kind of takes your breath away. It's so good.
The image they have on the Sphere when they're playing in Vegas of like, the sunrise.
And then the end of the record, there's no bad songs on this record. Mm-hmm. They get into like trying to throw your arms around the world, which I think is Bono talking about himself.
All right.
And I love that song. It's so not U2. It's like, it reminds me of Straight to Hell by The Clash. Mm-hmm. It's got kind of this, because The Clash is very interested in Jamaican dub music.
Right, yes.
And it's got kind of that vibe to it, like this repetitive groove to it. And then there's a song on this record called Acrobat. Mm-hmm. That's not only my favorite song on this record, but it's one of my favorite U2 songs ever. It's brilliant.
Is this the one where he's saying, "Don't let the bastards grind you down"?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It sounds to me, this is what I imagine about it, like we've spent all this time in reinvention and all this, brought in all this technology and laid it over what we do and created this great record. But this one, we're just going to be a fucking band rocking.
Yeah.
And it's just the four of them. And listen to that fucking guitar solo section, the way Larry's playing his toms and the guitar solo, it's so raw and cool. And then it's like some of the lyrics, I'd join the movement if there was one I could believe in. I'd break bread and wine if there was a church I could receive in. Just so beautiful. He's such a great, that's a great song.
Well, let's put a mark in that idea of technology, because I think that's a theme here that's going to grow, not only with you two, sort of engaging in the idea of what technology is doing, transforming us, transforming society, transforming our relationships to each other, transforming art. Because My Bloody Valentine's the same way, right? We're talking about like tech is coming into the arts.
It is.
And it's coming into the world. And we look back now and we're like, wow, we live in 2026 and we're talking about AI and we're talking about like tech, again, transforming the world in every kind of way. And the 90s, there was a real conversation about that. And it was happening in a different way than it does now. I don't know if it's quite the same tone. And I feel like you two are like, when they follow up with Zooropa, it's a lot of tech.
They embraced
engagement.
It. Yeah. They did. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay, so let's move on to our next album. Very, very much emblematic of a certain strain of the 90s. This album is called Not So Soft by Ani DiFranco. It's her second studio album. She's had a ton of albums. Came out in November 1991. Ani DiFranco is, I think, an acquired taste for a lot of people. That she has her fan base for sure, but I don't really put her quite at the level or really in the same bucket as all of those other like woman singer-songwriters that we're going to talk about in the 90s. She occupies that space, but she's not quite at the doing the PJ Harvey, Tori Amos thing. She's like sort of in her own bucket, if that makes sense. And she even created her own label and stuff like that.
Yeah, she created her own label when she was 19.
Yeah.
Righteous Babe Records, and I remember her. I mean, if you knew who she was if you were in the underground music scene.
Definitely, yes.
She's gonna have another album come out in a couple of years that has a sort of an underground hit song on it. It's not on this record, but she was, she is. You're right. Like she wasn't. If she was on the Loveless Fair tour, she would have been on the satellite stage.
Right.
She wasn't on the main stage.
Well, partly this album, I have good and things to say about it, but I think a lot of criticism of it too. This is not my thing. I was cringing through a lot of this album because of the lyrical content, her affect. It seems very dated to me in a lot of ways. This kind of acoustic, hippie, queer, activist folk thing that she's doing. especially the how it relates to the world of slam poetry, which was big during this era. And I think that if people didn't know how to approach the Ani DiFranco material, they should know what slam poetry was and how it was popular on MTV for a little bit. These performances where people would be very raw and emotional, and they would deliver their poems in a certain way. Like, there was this cadence to it that everybody did. There's a place in New York City called the New Eurekan Cafe, which I think they're still doing slam poetry. And I remember going to it with a bunch of people when I was in maybe my late 20s or early 30s, and I was kind of rolling my eyes at these performances. And I brought this up to my NYU students when I was teaching at NYU, and I was telling them, you should go check this out. Let me know what you think. And they were all 18 years old, 19 years old. They went to New Eurekan and they fucking loved it. They thought it was just so great, so raw, so emotional. So slam poetry, I think of as sort of like, I don't know, in the realm of like young people especially are into it. But there's
well, she's only like 21.
Yeah, I think it's Not So Soft, the track on this album, that there's no music at all. It's just, it's spoken word. It's spoken word art. It's kind of, I mean, it's next to hip hop. It's next to a bunch of other things, but I feel like with this album, I could really feel the slam poetry vibe from Ani DiFranco. Yeah,
well, that makes sense. She seems to be. She's very much because she's doing her thing with an acoustic guitar and her voice, and that's it, really.
Yeah,
and she's a really good guitar player.
There's like no production beyond just like her and her guitar. There's a couple songs that have a little bit of like acoustic percussion. Yeah.
But her guitar parts are interesting. She's a good guitar player.
I agree.
But I feel like she's almost like a hip hop artist.
Yes.
Because she's really just this poet, rapid fire saying what she's going to say while she's playing chords on a guitar. There isn't a lot of melody, and it is kind of where your cause on your sleeve type of
it's kind of precious and overly earnest for me. It probably works for some people, but there's a song on here that literally ends with the line that she says, "I am homeless, I am hungry, and I have AIDS." And I laughed out loud because it was like a South Park parody of an activist song. I was like, that is so fucking weird. It was just so, it's like, we've talked about this before with the Chris Christopherson syndrome. It's when it's a little too on the nose, I'm sort of rolling my eyes at it.
Yeah, I think she tells some good stories on here.
Yeah, there's some good stuff. I don't want to shit on all of it because I think there were some moments where I was like, that's great. And I appreciate the sentiment. That's the thing. And like, as much as I'm like making fun of it, it's like, pointing out that like problems of homelessness and AIDS and poverty and starvation, those things are important to me too. But there are ways of doing it that work and ways that don't for me.
I know what you're saying. You know, what I like about Ani DiFranco, she is her own thing, man, and she's made it on her own terms.
Yeah. How does she sit in that world? Because you like Indigo Girls so much.
Oh yeah.
She's sort of close to that a little bit, but I feel like they're better songwriters.
Well, they're foundationally, they're rooted in melody and harmony and all. You know, she's not.
Yeah, right.
She's more like a poet, like a street poet with an acoustic guitar.
Busker.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And the everything is trumped by the message.
Yes.
And I think the Indigo Girls are similar in that, but they're also, they care about the elements of songwriting a little more than Ani DiFranco does.
They like to abstract things into metaphor and like make songs about how beautiful a day in the South can be and like things like that.
If Ani DiFranco had a singing partner, it would be very difficult to harmonize with what she's doing. There's there's not a lot of attention to melody there. It's more about saying what needs to be said.
Yeah.
And in a way, and that's her thing. You know, she's it's funny because she's not queer anymore.
No.
She says she's pretty hetero now.
She pissed off a lot of people by marrying a man at some point.
Yeah.
And I think she got like she was canceled. There was some controversy where she got married on a former plantation in the South. Do you remember this? And people were shocked by it because it tells you a lot about her fan base, honestly, which is that they're very into the politics. You know what I mean? Like, she feels, that's why I say dated. It feels like, I don't know if Annie DiFranco is winning any new fans now. I think she's got a fan base from this era, but even the style of it just feels old fashioned to me. If I wanted to be like, this was the 90s, kids, you know, I might show them a performance from Annie DiFranco with her dreadlocks and her tank top and her sort of like the way she sings, the way she does like percussive stuff on the acoustic guitar. All of it seems very much of the 90s.
I wonder, I wrote down in my notes that to me, she exemplifies the difference between influence and inspiration. Mm-hmm. Because I don't think she influenced a lot of artists, but I bet she inspired quite a few.
Yeah, totally.
You know, because she was one of the few people that successfully, genuinely did a DIY project. Like, she had her own label and she sold a lot of records and got pretty popular and did it completely on her own terms.
And she never, you know, this is kind of to her credit to me. She never like took a turn to make like an electronic pop album.
No.
Where she's wearing a bikini on the like this happened with Jewel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Jewel.
Okay. She made a country record.
Yeah, Jewel was like, this is a folk artist, you know. Jewel, when she was introduced to us, this is the girl that famously like lived in a van, played coffee house gigs, and like brought her like yodeling and folk sort of element into the mainstream. And then at some point, I'm seeing Jewel records, and she's like got crop top on. She looks different. She's really made up. Her hair is blown out, and I'm sort of like, oh, like I didn't expect that from her. Annie DiFranco never did that. She stayed true to her sort of the vein that she occupies in the culture, which is this acoustic poetry stuff, and I'll give her credit for that.
We just saw her. She's a little bit of a Renaissance woman too. Like she's an author, and we just saw her 2 summers ago now, almost 2 summers ago, the summer of 2024.
Really?
We saw her on Broadway playing Persephone in a show called Hadestown. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Annie DiFranco.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Wow.
She played the character Persephone in a show called Hadestown.
Okay, so that's Annie DiFranco's Not So Soft, a November 1991 release. I think very much a part of this era. And I do think that sort of hippie activist vibe is going to come back. We're going to hear it in other albums as we move forward through the 90s. And speaking of, this is funny because there's a lot of socially conscious music here, but done in very different directions. Our next album is called Tupacalypse Now. It's the debut solo studio album by Tupac, who is arguably the greatest rapper in history. People put him up on that. He's on the Mount Rushmore of rappers, I would say. If there's like 4 or 5 rappers there, he's one of them. And
who would be on the Mount Rushmore rappers?
Well, I guess it would all be dudes, right? So I'm like,
probably,
yeah,
because you got to have Eminem.
Yeah.
Tupac.
Biggie.
Would Snoop Dogg go up there?
I think Kendrick Lamar would go up before Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Biggie.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That would be a good thing to ask the audience. Like, who's on the Rushmore of hip hop?
Well, no matter who you say, I think Tupac is just sort of an automatic.
Yeah.
Like he's going to be up there because it's his flow, his content of his rap, the content of his music is really arresting and really compelling and strong, but he's got a charisma too. Like his voice has like he became a Hollywood actor for a while, and it makes sense that he did.
Doing a little bit. I wanted to. So I'm not an expert on hip hop. And when I'm going to talk about these artists, I mean, I feel comfortable talking about Public Enemy and NWA because I was so into them. But like, I want to kind of, I want to pay the subject my respects. And
you always give the caveat: I'm just a white guy,
just a lame white dude
with an opinion on hip hop.
I was surprised to learn a little bit about Tupac's background.
Yeah,
and he's quite an artiste, right? He studied Shakespeare and different types of art. He was a background dancer for Digital Underground,
and comes from a family of radicals,
Black Panthers.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And he was sort of raised in that tradition.
Yeah,
and you can hear that in this album.
His mom said she changed his name when he was 1.
Yeah,
to Tupac because she named him after a gosh, I forget the guy, I forget the story, but she wanted him to be a revolutionary.
Yeah. Well, he kind of was
Kind of
in
was.
his own way. And so this album is sort of known for a couple things. One, it's a kind of a muted Tupac we get compared to what he's going to blossom into.
Oh, really?
And become a really much more fierce than what he is here. Not that this doesn't have its moments of ferociousness, but it's also the production of this album kind of sucks. Like it's not the most, I don't know, it's not the most compelling production. After listening to Public Enemy and even Ice Cube,
Yeah.
like I'm and especially listening to fucking De La Soul and Tribe Called Quest, I'm getting used to like a sort of elevated hip hop production.
Yeah.
And this is sort of like, I don't know, not that exciting. It's not. But what do you think about this album? Because it does fall into that category where we're sort of like, it's kind of gangster rap, but he's not just talking about gangbanging this whole time. This isn't like what was that? We listened to a couple that were just straight up gangster albums.
Like the last NWA album.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I think, first of all, he has prodigious talent. Obviously, he's great. And I mean, there's a couple of songs on here, like Young Black Male, the first song. He found a rhythm in his rap that I've never heard before.
Yeah, right.
So I was impressed with his musicality.
Yes.
Rhythm, he finds great rhythm, and even though I get what you're saying about the production, there was an R&B feel to a lot of this stuff. It's got a groove. It's musical. So I feel like he is there's a depth to what he's doing, even though a lot of this stuff is kind of gangster rap.
Familiar material.
But I'm kind of like, okay, but I still think most of the time he puts a different twist on it. There's some things about it that interested me. Like there's very little misogyny on here.
In fact, there's kind of the opposite. He takes the position of women a couple of different times and tells some really heartbreaking stories, honestly. The track 10, Brenda's Got a Baby, which I think was one of the bigger known songs from this album.
Yeah.
It's talking about a 12-year-old girl essentially being
who got pregnant
raped.
and had to try and falling in love with her abuser and then trying to find ways to take care of the child. And and
it's never like, oh, these bitches gave us AIDS, like Ice Cube talks about.
Right.
It's instead like really considering and the socioeconomic and gendered consequences of this kind of violent attitude.
He has, even when he's talking about shooting cops, he has a way of painting it like people do these things because they're desperate. There's a song on this record called no, I went the wrong way. Sorry.
It has a narrative quality like movies.
Yes, it does.
You're right. Like when he's talking about shooting cops, you're like in it with him. There's like a story happening, and you feel his fear, and you feel his bravado.
Yeah.
You feel his anger at abuse from police, putting up with that.
Yeah.
You're invited in.
It doesn't surprise me that he became an actor.
Right.
Because he's a storyteller.
Totally.
And a great one. There's a song in here called Violent, and it created a controversy. There's some guy killed a sheriff in Texas and said he was listening to Tupac when he was
that's right.
Like
Dan Quayle said something about this.
So Dan Quayle, the vice president of the United States, speaks up about this. And what does he say? There's no place for this type of music. Like, how fucking stupid. Yeah. Maybe listen to these records being made by young black guys and learn what their lives are.
Yeah.
And then maybe we can do something to change it.
Right.
Because that's what a lot of these artists are doing
hip hop became a big target for the Republican Party specifically as they associated it with they were on the bandwagon just almost like the same way as the Satanic Panic, where they're saying like, look, this evil music is influencing kids instead of seeing it as like a reflection of the culture, a reflection of society. Yeah.
And so in the
douchebags,
I feel like that seems obvious to me. I told you when I was a young kid, I felt this way about Public Enemy. Like they brought me in. And I was very poor when I was a young kid. We didn't have shit. We moved all the time. My parents hated each other. I had a fucked up life too. So I knew what it was like to be
killed a few cops
challenged.
at some point. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Statute of limitations. It's fine. Yeah.
Do I gotta pull out my Nina? No. I was drawn to it because I had my own, street life,
Sure.
I was busted for all kinds of. Had a burglary on my rap sheet before I was 16 for dumb shit I was doing. So I was drawn a little bit to it, I felt like it let me in, and I felt that like this. If you listen, if there was a political study group who listened to Tupac's records, they could determine from the art that this man is creating, we have a problem in our cities, and we need to do something about it. Not this should not ever be said. Like what a fucking myopic.
I think he's like one of the best chroniclers and artists when it comes to talking about this the problems of poverty and deprivation in what is often referred to as the inner city. This is and in the black community, and especially among young black males who become like a target of like the Republican Party, etc. We've talked about this, but this is like the lead in to the LA riots. There's a lot of anger.
He talks about Rodney King on this record.
If you're Dan Quayle, you're not noticing that like something is happening here that is that has been bubbling for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And I think Tupac is of all the stuff we've listened to so far, because Ice Cube, he did you notice that he calls out Ice Cube and like and Lynch
Public
Mob
Enemy.
He puts himself in that tradition. He's like, these are my guys, So they're all sort of like these angry black males with different levels of machismo and bravado and chest beating and stuff like that. But to me, Tupac is the most learned and the most interesting of all of them.
There's clearly a depth and a heart to him that a lot of these guys don't have. There's a song called Words of Wisdom. It's brilliant.
Yes.
It's brilliant. This is, personally, as a lame white motherfucker, this is what I appreciate most about hip-hop. When people like this, talented guys like Tupac, use this massive platform. I don't know how big his platform was then, but
it's gonna grow huge. But
he speaks truth to power. He talks about social injustice in a very intelligent and hard-hitting way, and like he talks about this is to empower those who don't have a voice. That's what he does in that song, and that's what I love about Chuck D. Yeah. And I think Tupac's very capable of this. He's very, very intelligent, very articulate guy, great rapper, very musical. He's an impressive dude.
To me, it's sort of I'm glad you mentioned Eminem, because one of the things I used to marvel at with Eminem is sort of like, how is he writing stuff that rhymes and has this musicality to it that's also compelling in terms of telling a story.
He's incredible.
And like how you do that is it's mind-boggling to me.
I don't know, because I don't know how you do that. There's a lot of things about music that I can tell you how you do it. That one I have no fucking clue. He's so good.
Eminem has a line where he calls himself the criminal cop killing hip hop villain, a minimal swap to cop millions of Pac listeners. And you're sort of like, holy shit! Like all of the. And it's like, it's deep what he's saying. Yeah. Like it was a minimal swap to cop millions of Pac listeners to like pretend that I'm a criminal cop killing hip hop villain. Yeah. Like it's sort of like, it's just amazing. And Tupac is, Kendrick Lamar often sounds a lot like Tupac and consciously so. And there's actually a track at the end of one of Kendrick Lamar's albums. I think it's To Pimp a Butterfly, where he takes an interview with Tupac, like an unknown interview that was sort of like a recording, and Kendrick like talks to Tupac, and when he's talking to him, and they're sort of together, they're contemplating what to do about the state of society and the state of young black men in society. It is amazing, and I feel like Tupac is like at the top of this game. You know what I mean? Whatever it is.
So I'll be super excited to listen to his next
evolution. Right.
Because I consider.
I think you'll be both enthralled and disappointed. He's
really?
Sort of like I really was thinking a lot about Malcolm X in this.
Does he thug it up a little bit?
Well, yeah, and it's sort of like they're really torn between like having like a just hateful, violent attitude towards like all white people or cops, and then also this like other very humanitarian vision of like peace and brotherhood. Yeah. And I feel like that tension is very present in Tupac and in his stuff. He's sort of torn between like giving into the rage and anger and what that makes of you, but also then sort of taking a step back and realizing that you're being you're being pushed into that, and you need to find a way out of it. I think that's really interesting.
You know,
the sort of struggle within a person's soul.
We can't look. I am consistently disgusted, hopeless, and infuriated with the amount of corruption in our politics, in the way money is distributed amongst people, in the opportunities people have availability for, in what's available to people if they get sick, if they want to get an education.
Oh, it's a brutal society. It really is.
It's so depressing, and it sucks the life out of me and angers me and despises me and makes me despise people. And I'm a fucking straight white guy.
Right.
What is it like if you're a black? I have no fucking clue what that would be like.
Right.
So
especially living in these conditions, and raised in this tradition, and so that kind of struggle of like, how do you respond to a society that hates you and wants to kill you, is I don't know. It's a really, it's sort of like the heart of a lot of politics.
When
honestly,
you know that in our lifetime there were plans to keep black people from getting home loans, from being able to live in certain places. We know that shit. We know that in our lifetimes, big companies said, let's go build our fucking poisonous plants next to the black communities.
Well, yeah. And then we talked about this with Ice Cube, talking about like the crack epidemic, the,
liquor
selling
stores,
malt liquor, guns. And, some people are going to put hip hop in that category. This is another poison that corporations are selling. You know what I mean? Because it's like big, white-owned corporate record companies are selling violence and selling a sort of gangster image. It's an interesting conversation.
True.
Yeah, I know.
It's true.
Well, this actually came up on. Charlemagne the God? You know this guy. He talks about this a lot, like the culture vulture idea, which is exactly that. This idea of like,
for sure,
that there are record companies that are just very cynically selling the nastiest shit because they know it sells. You know what I mean? And it's like, I think that
they've co-opted and commandeered and appropriated that whole.
They don't give a shit about what it does to people.
We're gonna watch what happens to underground rock music in the '90s. It is the same fucking thing. It's all this homogenized shit by the end of the decade. Let me ask you one more thing about Tupac, because he deserves more of our time. And I'm excited to see the evolution. Yeah. Two things I want to ask.
He's a very thought-provoking dude. Yeah.
He's clearly a great artist. There's a depth to him that I really appreciate. Two things. Is there a Cobain effect to him? Does he have a legend that he otherwise might not have because he died so young?
Totally. Yeah.
It's such a fucking bummer that he died so young.
I was at where you and I met at a little restaurant called Marie Callender's in the 90s. I was working there when someone got a phone call. This is how we used to get news. Is that it would go around as a rumor. It wasn't like anyone texted you. But someone like got a phone call from their friend and said, hey, it's on the news that Tupac died, because he had been shot in Las Vegas and he was in the hospital for a couple of days. Yeah. And I remember all of us sitting there in silence in the same way that when Cobain died, of just being like, shit, like that's the loss of a big dude. And like, there's still murals of him on walls in cities, like I think for sure, like his death made him a legend. And I think his he started talking about it in his songs about how he was going to die young probably and all that kind of stuff. And it's also a big part of the mythology of both him and Notorious B.I.G. being murdered, and neither of their murders being solved.
They're not solved,
right? So that's just kind of like everyone has different ideas of what actually happened there. But either way, it is a kind of a huge part of the 90s is understanding these figures and their deaths, leaving a sort of hole for us.
From what I'm able to perceive, and I could be wrong, hip-hop fans, please feel free to tell me, but he seems to have a more pervasive legend than Notorious B.I.G.
Yeah, I agree. Well,
B.I.G. Is it the body of work, or what is it?
I think I think that I think it's partly that Tupac was much more political, which was much more the sort of revolutionary, whereas B.I.G., and again, correct me if I'm wrong, hip-hop fans and hip-hop heads are going to be like, you're wrong about that, but like, I think Notorious B.I.G.'s stuff isn't as directly confrontational of the system.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. But both of them are considered the best rappers in part because of just the artistry of what
They're
they did
both
with
great,
their
man.
vocals. It's sort of like their voices are so iconic.
Yeah.
What was the other thing?
Was that
the two
I'll tell you the second thing. But
Yeah.
I just want to tell you, during pandemic, I started taking mixed martial arts classes in the park. And this guy, my coach, who I love, a great guy, he listened to hip hop. And he would have shit on, like you're working and you're throwing punches and
right.
so you're not really focused on the music, but I would hear it and go, fuck, who is that?
Yeah.
And it was always Notorious B.I.G.
Yeah.
Okay? He's fucking great, But the other thing I was going to say was, what did you think? Dude, what did you think of Part-Time Mother?
Oh, God.
Dude,
yeah.
I loved that. I
Yes.
was laughing so hard, and yet
It's brutal.
I was laughing because they took Part-Time Lover by Billy Ocean.
Right.
And then also going, oh my God, my heart's breaking because of the lyrics, what he's talking
Yes.
about. And like, so
It has a woman rapper on it that comes
Right.
on, and I love that, again, sort of pushing
Brilliant.
back against the just really easy hack misogyny that we hear in a
Yeah.
lot of hip-hop and rock music in this
Fuck
era.
yeah, for sure.
Instead, this is thoughtful and sort of taking all positions. And I love it at the end when he's like, I'm the part-time mother now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a consideration of like the parents that are junkies, essentially, that are ignoring their kids and abusing their kids. It is a brutal vision, and it reminded me a lot of the TV show The Wire. I don't know if you ever watched that show.
Yeah, I
but
love The Wire.
Yeah, so I felt like that because they portrayed that on that show as sort of like how these things really have an impact on children, and and at the same time how trapped the parents themselves are. You know what I mean? Like it's not. I like that he is not just giving you easy villains and easy heroes. Instead, it's sort of like these are dynamic visions of the kind of choices that people have to make in this society.
Fuck yeah. You take any animal, and humans are animals too. And I don't care if you're black or white or green, whatever you are, take away their opportunity to make their circumstances better, they become hostile.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
Mm.
it's not complicated.
This is really, really good shit. I was sort of like tuned in like I was watching a movie the whole time to this.
Yeah,
And
I dug the record too.
I think it is influential to the type of hip hop we're going to hear as we move forward. And there are like different strains. This is a golden era of hip hop in the 90s. In the same moment that rock is having its golden moment.
Right now, if you said to me, John, as a guy that was in the music scene and doing it all, touring and making records and stuff in the 90s, doing this podcast, what have you learned that you didn't know in the first couple of years? I would say how much fucking great hip hop there was.
Yeah, right. That's same for me. I mean, I knew that and I listened to some of it, but this is an education for me. I mean, it's an education for me in all these bands, honestly, one way or the other, because I never really, a lot of these records I've never paid much attention to. And one of the funny things that I was thinking when we first started this podcast was I didn't have any fucking money to buy CDs back then. They were always like $20, and there was no way to there was no way to listen to this stuff. So I'd be like,
friends tape them for you.
Cool. Like there's a band that has an album out. Like I'd like to hear that. But all I'm hearing mostly is the stuff that's on MTV and the radio, and whatever I do end up like, I used to ask my parents to buy me records at Costco. Because they had them at Costco. I think that's how I got Nirvana's Nevermind, honestly. I was like, can we get that one? Because they used to sell CDs at Costco.
They weren't shocked by the naked child on the cover?
I don't think so.
Is that a penis?
Yeah.
David, if you're gay, you can tell us.
They might have had it like covered up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. But okay, so let's do one more album that comes out in November 91. This one is called Bandwagonesque, third studio album by a Scottish alternative rock band called Teenage Fanclub. We listened to their first album, Catholic Education, and I think we enjoyed it. I will say this, I enjoyed this one even more. I really, really liked this album, and this is really a funny part of the album's mythology, and it sort of tells you a lot about the history of rock in the 90s. This album was named the #1 album of the year by Spin magazine, and they've since they had to apologize and defend it. And even Teenage Fanclub said we were really shocked that we were given the best album of the year when this year had, and we'll do our top 10 at some point soon. But this year had some historically significant, huge albums. We've mentioned A Tribe Called Quest, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Nirvana's Nevermind, R.E.M's Out of Time. I mean,
Pearl Jam, yeah.
Pearl Jam's 10. It goes on and on. But somehow Teenage Fanclub, a band that no one had fucking heard of, that make like this kind of jangly Britpop type shit, that was the number one album. I don't know if it quite holds the weight of those other albums, and it certainly, history has judged it otherwise and said this isn't the best album of the year. But that being said, I really dug this album. I think this is a fun album. Yeah.
It's a fucking great album.
Yeah.
It's just ear candy.
Every song is fucking catchy. It's all hooks.
It's all very derivative of other things,
Totally.
not in an offensive way. Super catchy.
Well, people said it was the fourth Big Star album. Like they said, like this.
Dude.
This is like very obviously derivative of that band.
I couldn't get past that. It is a great album. There's not a bad song on it. And if you said this was a Big Star album, I would go, yeah, I get it.
Right.
Like, cool. When did they record this one? It's so Big Star. And Chris Bell's like, I'm the Cosmos. And just so, the Big Star is just, it's a wow. You know, like and then,
this was such a refreshing, like after all the like heavy stuff of Annie DiFranco and Tupac, like that there was just this sort of like, like a nice little like jangly guitars,
middle class white male themes like I love you and
exactly.
you like me because my hair's long.
Everything's about girlfriends and boyfriends, very Beatles-esque harmonies. You know, it's sweet. It's like it's a beautiful album, really.
There was a school of these people
in
the late 80s and going into the early 90s who were, so you think about the guitar player dudes that are in the 80s, they grew up studying arpeggiated scales and blues riffs and on their bed 8 hours a day. These musicians knew how to structure pop melodies, how to do harmonies, how to play, chord solos and like posies, Lemonheads. I don't know if I put Lemonheads in that category,
You know
but
who
like
they sound like to me? Fountains of Wayne.
Fountains of Wayne, sure. Like this
Fun
great
stuff to listen to.
And it's influenced by this sort of 60s psychedelic adjacent revival that happened. People that are influenced by the Byrds and early Who. Like a couple of songs, this record sounds like it could be on Kids Are All Right, you know? But
yes.
Like early Who stuff, the Byrds, and the Beatles, of course. But Big Star, dude.
I never meant to hurt you. Like the first song. It's 6 minutes long, and I didn't mind.
No,
like I just love it. Just
sweet.
Carrying me along.
It's super sweet.
I'll listen to this one again for sure.
Yeah, me too. There's a song in here called "What You Do to Me," and I'm sure.
What you do to me? See, like this is like unlike My Bloody Valentine. These hooks I remember. Like I hum them again. They're earworms.
See,
and that's not necessarily saying every song should be an earworm. Like I don't think that's true. But this is what they're doing, and they do it really well.
Oh man, the craft of songwriting is on display here. Not in an incredibly unique way, but there's none of the emotional turbulence of these other 90s bands that are popular in the state. Like, there's no addiction, there's no I'm depressed, I'm broken,
sunny.
I'm a thief,
no, this is an optimistic,
I'm a creep, I'm a loser. There's none of that stuff.
Right.
There's none of that.
I saw interviews with them, and their Scottish accents are so fucking heavy you can barely understand what they're saying. Yeah, right. And then when he sings, he sounds like an American teenager. You know what I mean? Like he, like literally, they're great at masking their accent. I'm sort of like that alone is impressive, honestly.
I swear to God, they were. I feel like they were possessed by Alex Chilton. This record is so fucking Big Star. But interesting. I'd love to know a little more about. Look, there's a lot of things that make a record popular. Promotion and things like that are a huge part of it. But I feel like, so these guys, they're of that school, that pop school. And there's a huge market for this in the early 90s. And like,
but they're like, nobody bought our record. They're like, it was great to be named number one album by Spin Magazine,
bought it.
But nobody listened to this.
Was it not promoted or whatever? Like, pretty soon Weezer's going to come along.
They were on Saturday Night Live, though, which I thought was interesting. And they said they got invited to come on Saturday Night Live, and they had never heard of it. And we should go do that.
Was it just the timing? Were they a few months too early or something? Like, Weezer's going to come along and do something very similar.
It's kind of lightweight.
It's kind of lightweight.
And I would say, as a huge Weezer fan and someone who like Weezer's like one of my number ones, Weezer is able to kind of write lyrics that pop a little bit more than these guys.
He's also
and hooks that are
the
intense,
hooks.
yeah.
But these hooks are, but he's a great hook writer. Rivers Cuomo. He's also a fucking great guitar player.
Yeah.
Like he throws a little shred in there.
Yeah, totally.
That kind of brings it into the '90s a little bit. You know.
They have a metal album, their Black album.
Yeah.
It's all that.
He's a great. He's a shredder. You know.
Yeah.
Like so he brings a little bit of that edge to it.
Yeah.
That gives it a '90s feel, and he's also much more distinctive.
Mm-hmm.
Like you hear, oh, that's Weezer. That's them. So
and Buddy Holly, that song, for whatever reason, it's just a perfect song for like blasting them into like the buzz of the 90s.
I mean, the Sweaters song had a big buzz.
Yeah.
But Buddy Holly was this trifecta of success. Okay. First of all, the song's got a killer hook.
Yep.
Secondly, that fucking video.
Yes.
Was ingenious.
Spike Jonze directed it.
Spike Jonze, the Happy Days video.
Spike Jonze, I think, for people that don't know who Spike Jonze is, because he's not as big a figure,
right?
I think his influence was heavy on the sort of visual culture of the 90s.
For sure.
He made a lot of
Sabotage for Beastie
videos.
Boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so brilliant video.
Yep.
And then the humor, the self-effacing humor of Weezer. Like he's one of those guys. He's like an Andy Kaufman. We'll get into Weezer, but
I started wearing those nerd glasses because of that video, because of that song. I was like, I look like Buddy Holly. Ooh, I look like Buddy Holly. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to. When I saw those guys wearing their fucking cardigan sweaters and their short haircuts and their nerd glasses, I was like, that's what I want to be.
The nerd image. And but you can
they're
never...
nerds, but they're kind of punk and cool at the same time.
Cool
you know what I mean?
nerds, yes. You can never tell if he's joking.
Right.
You know? And like the first line of that song, what's with these homies dissing my girl? Why do they got a front? Like he's talking like a rapper in this dorky.
Yes.
Like just the magic of that moment. He captured that.
Yeah, so I don't think they have that. I don't think they ever.
No, there's no tongue in cheek. No.
Quite that. They kind of go for it. I think at the beginning he makes the reference to like Status Quo, that she's gonna go buy some Status Quo records, and like he's sort of like he's close to that. But I feel like, if we're comparing them to Weezer takes whatever Teenage Fanclub has and sort of packages it in a much tighter shotgun blast into the culture.
Into the culture, and it works much better.
But this was a great fucking album.
Really good record.
Loved it. Okay, so that is November 1991. We will be back to talk about December.
And then, album of the year.
Yeah, well, that's going to be a tricky one. Because 91 is a crazy fucking year. And I'm already sitting here thinking about, like, what are going to be... I have no idea. Because it always surprises me to go back through our episodes and, like, look at what really hit for us and what didn't. But
it isn't going to be...
a lot of choices.
I can tell you what it isn't going to be for me. It isn't going to be Chickasaw Mud Puppies.
No. I'm going to choose that. Drum roll, please. Number 1. Chickasaw Mud Puppies, of course. I mean, I think it's kind of cruel and against the sort of, I don't know, we're not trying to be mean-spirited on this show, so we're not doing a, like, worst of, but it'd be interesting to think of, like, what were the albums that just didn't hit for us, you know? And I think that was one of them, for sure.
That would be too much. I'd have to go back and remember them. I told you what happened with that one.
You forgot.
I was at lunch with my friend, and he's like talking about it, and I go, "Who?" And he's like, "You were just talking about him on the show a couple days ago." And I'm like, "I've never heard of him." And he's on, and then he brought it up and showed me. I go, "Oh,
right, yeah, it's that forgettable." All right, well, there are plenty of others to choose from, so we'll be doing that soon. We'll be back. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.